All right, welcome everyone to our budget workshop for the City of York Springs on Monday, June 9th. Mr. Akins, I think you've got some...
Wow, y'all seem way back there. Okay, so you're going to have, what this is going to be is this is a makeup budget session for our May one that we missed. So you should have a budget package for March. And then you were handed out tonight your budget packet for April, which we'll go over at the next budget meeting, which is the second one. So this is going to be your March 2005 budget packet. So on page 1, under our sales tax, for the month of March, we received $185,750 in sales tax. That was up $4,000 over the previous year. It brings our total up to $36,781.78 over the previous year. Our numbers that came in for April, sales tax went down a little bit, but then our numbers came in really strong for May, so they came back up for May. Right now, we're currently sitting at about $54,000 over where we were at in 2024. Page 2 is just the bar chart on the comparison so that you can see year over year for January, February, and March. Page 3, this is our sales and use tax distribution. This is sales tax that was collected by the merchants in January, remitted to the state in February, and we received it in March. Out of that, we received the general fund, $128,119.86 went into the general fund, $32,506 went into streets, $34,828 went into parks, and $25,124 was reserved out for our bond payment. Our annual in that, through the month of March, the general fund has received $512,579. The streets has received $124,717. Parks has received $133,625.50. And so far we have $75,372.30 to go in towards the bond payment. On page 4, that's just the sales and use tax fund distribution. You'll see that $226,676.61 was deposited. Then we had our service charge, the interest earned, and we received $220,578.43. Page 5 is the breakout of that, of the 1% sales tax, the 1/4% sales tax, and the 12.5% or 0.125% sales tax. How much each one of those received. Page 6 of 42 is our 2025 sales tax collected by categories. And you'll see in the March ones, contractors were responsible for $3,554, manufacturing for $2,024, wholesale $8,430, retailers $77,020, electronic shopping and mail order $16,500, informational services $7,179, food and beverage $26,439, lodging $34,000, and miscellaneous $51,000. Down below, you'll see the percentages of how that breaks out, with retailers being the largest at 33.98, then the miscellaneous category, then lodging, then food and beverage. The next page is a bar graph showing exactly what we have collected over the course of the 3 months, the percentages there, with retail being the largest at 33.34, and then you'll see food and beverage is at 13.76, lodging is at 17.27, and the miscellaneous category at 19%. Following that is the detail of all of that tax, the different areas of what that tax consists of. So that goes through page 16. Then, has anybody got any questions so far?
I do.
Okay.
Back on page 6,
Okay.
that,
Sorry.
yeah. I did.
Yes.
So, it was, what was the other tax? The miscellaneous,
Yes.
that's a huge amount.
It's, if you look, if you'll look on page 15, if you look down at the bottom, you see that you have restaurants and other eating places, number 7225, okay? That's where we start the miscellaneous after that, which is automotive repair, commercial and industrial machine equipment, personal household goods, personal care, dry cleaning, other personal services, and then these businesses that are with less than 3 businesses. We're not sure, Ida and I have looked into this other, we haven't been able to drill down what this other category is, but it does represent a large amount, and that's where we get that number from.
We have dry cleaning in town?
I guess, we're getting taxes from it.
It could be laundry service.
Definitely laundry services.
Is there laundry service in town? That's like
Yeah.
pickup and delivery?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, it is.
There is?
Sure is.
Well, they deliver motels,
Yeah.
linens, that, yeah, they do that.
I know someone picked him up, I just assumed they went somewhere else, not in Rica Springs, so.
You know, another thing that's been interesting since we've started doing this, we've just been doing this for 25 and breaking out these categories. They're not big categories, but occasionally we see categories from month to month that don't have, you know, they'll have taxes in them for a couple of months and then maybe not, and then they pick back up. Like, I guess it's whenever that business reports it, or if they don't have any business during the month, they're not reporting any sales tax. And like I said, they're not any of our big things. They're just little $20 in taxes or $50 in taxes. So we have seen some categories go in and out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on page 17, this is our revenue and expenditures report. So this is for 3/31/25, which would be 24.66% of our fiscal year. So far on our revenue side, we have $2.4 million, which represents 19% of our budgeted amount. And we have $3,074.14 in expenses, which represents 24% of our budgeted amount. Currently, you'll see that the overall loss there is $617,000. But if you go down to the bottom, you will see that we have some capital infusions that we had anticipated paying out of reserve funds that we had not out of ordinary income for the month of 25. So when you add those back in, we are right now running at a loss of $210,000 for the year. That's a total for the year. Or total for the year. When you look at this, you know, a lot of our revenue will start picking up. In April, we're almost flat. So when we start looking at the April numbers, as the revenue starts coming in, we start getting more taxes. Smitty's revenue is going up in transit, those kind of things. In the month of June, we get some large payments, like the Western Carroll County Ambulance Authority. We get that large payment. So some of our revenue starts coming in towards the mid-month where we've had these, you know, one-time expenses at the beginning of the year. So we start catching back up on our revenue.
That ambulance, what's it, almost 300,000?
Yeah, it's 300,000. 330,000 is what we've got budgeted. We'll get half of that, probably about 165,000 in June. We get it in June, so we'll get it sometime this month. Behind that is the detail. If there's anything in there you want to ask about. Even though our revenue seems at this point to be a little bit lower, you can see, like, if you look on page 19, at 01004031, that's our sales tax. We're at 513,000. The same time last year, we were at 482. So, we're a little bit higher there. Parks Commission taxes, a little bit higher there. So we are showing an increase in some of our revenues. Property taxes, this has really lagged behind, but we got a huge payment in April. So that catches up a lot of it in April. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Michael, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Is there a way to drill down a specific weekend or day or time frame for tax purposes?
Not with any of the information that we have. Basically, the only way to really look at that is like if you want to say, how did 1 month do over a previous years is going, like if we wanted to take a whole month of May and say, we had all these festivals in May, how did we do last year in May? Check that month per this month. You gross up the revenues to show, exactly how much sales and stuff like that you had based upon your tax revenue, and then you go from month to month. From year to year. That's our only really way. We don't have any, way to say the first weekend, the second weekend, or the third weekend, or the fourth weekend were our real tax dollars. All we get is the report basically that gives us the total. Then we're able to go into the other website and get the detail of what categories, but they don't break it down, because when a business reports their taxes, they send it in and they just take it for the month. And so they don't drill it down to a weekly. So we don't really have anything to come up with those kind of figures.
Okay, thank you.
But a good way to look at it is if we have, say the Zombie Festival, if we didn't have the Zombie Festival ever before, and then in 24 we had the Zombie Festival, then we could go back and look at October of 23 and see how did it compare to October of 24, the first year they had the festival, and kind of, maybe get some indications like that. But that's about as far as we can really drill it down.
So with that being said, can you give me tax revenues for the month of June in 2023?
Yes, I can get you that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Michael,
Yes, ma'am.
related to reporting questions, I'm wondering, would it be possible to also run a report that would just pull all of the line items that are like 10% or more over the budget?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we can do that. The only thing with that I will say is, let's take one here for example. Okay, go to page 21, and if you'll look under my department, under the finance department, 01115040, you'll see workman's comp insurance. I budgeted $365. We spent $363, so that's 99.66% of the budget. That's because it's a one-time payment. So you're going to have, when you go for those percentages and look at those, you kind of have to factor those out too, because a lot of those are going to be one-time payments, one-time expense, something like that, that may show it over budget.
For sure.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay.
Michael,
Yes, sir.
what's Tyson Fire Recovery revenues? I see it.
So you'll remember a few months ago, Tyson's had the big fire over in Green Forest. And so our crews went over and helped out. And because of the type of fire, there was a lot of damage that was done to our equipment. And so Gary went through all the equipment that was damaged. Tyson's was extremely nice about this, and he submitted to them an invoice of what it would cost to replace all of that, and so they cut us a check. And so what we decided to do was, I didn't want to get that commingled into any of his capital expenditures or anything like that. So what we did is we went ahead and made a revenue account for that. We took that check into that revenue, and then we expensed that to, I think there's under his department, there should be a Tyson's. If you'll look on page 23 of 42, you'll see 01, 14, 59, 89 at the last one on the first group. It says Tyson's fire recovery expenses. So as he starts to get that equipment in, we're throwing it into that expense account so we can keep that separate.
All right, cool.
So. Any other questions about the detail?
No.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to add on page 32 of 42, this is the Fireman's Pension Fund. We show this as it's kind of a loss, but it's technically not because it's paid out of the Fireman's Pension Fund, but we didn't want to add it to our front sheet as a capital infusion, but going forward in April, we are putting that on there as like a beginning fund balance to take that negative out of there because that's funded completely by the fireman's pension, and we take draws off of that fund, but we don't show it as revenue because it's not technically revenue. So that's going to be changing in our April one. So if we can go to page 35 of 42, I kind of wanted to show you this. This is the last page of the water. And so if you'll look on there on the water and sewer fund, you'll see under the second column that our income was $545,000, our expenses were $698 with a loss of $152,000. If you go just a little bit back up that page a little bit, you'll see 80, 22, 58, 60 wastewater treatment rehab project. Then you'll see wastewater treatment project, sludge storage project, and rate study Act 605. Those are specific accounts that are specific things that we paid for that are in regards to the rehab project of the wastewater treatment plant and of the storage. If you add those back in there as not as kind of extraordinary expenses that are outside of a norm, our water department actually made money. So that's a good thing. We would have actually made $55,565 in our water department. So we are getting on the right track with our billing. Our income is coming in steadier. Our income is coming up. If you'll look at page 33 of 42, you'll see under water sales, for the first 3 months, we had $255,000. Same time last year, we had $231,000. And then sewer sales, $200,000 for sewer fees, and same time last year, we had $163,000. So our rate increases are, helping, and they are bringing in more water or more money to the water department. All right, if you'll go to page 39, this is our capital expenditures that we have made so far. I know that the police vehicles were purchased in April, so they'll be on the April report. The fire department, he has spent $157,000 of his $222. Those are the 2 new life packs for the ambulances, and then some additional the drone and some additional hoses and stuff that he's bought. Water and sewer, we ended up buying 3 trucks instead of 2 trucks, and still saved money. So those are coming in April. We spent less than 80 and bought 3 trucks. And then transit, he's paid half of the price of his tram that's coming in. And that's, I think he had a little bit of expenditures in April, but not much. So as for capital expenditures so far, we have $206,398 that we spent. Page 40 of 42. This is our comparative bank balances. So you'll see that it starts with the year end of 2024, and this goes through March of 2025. You'll see on some of these, we have double accounts now because we have moved some of these to Equity Bank. And so some of them still have balances in CS while they're clearing out checks and stuff. And then they have the new balances for the Equity Bank's accounts. When we eventually get those where the CS ones are closed and we just have the equity ones, we'll take those additional accounts out to make it clearer. But right now we wanted to show them all because some of them had deposits in both of them.
I guess now is as good a time as any. You mentioned that about the bank accounts. I'm really not sure I understand. That was mentioned at the last meeting about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered then and didn't say anything, but whenever we move accounts, don't we bid those out? Isn't that what happens?
No, not on these accounts. We bid our CDs anytime we move our CDs because those are being paid a rate. These accounts don't have any fees on them, so we don't bid them.
But they're interest-bearing accounts.
Some of them do have interest on them that they make, but they don't have any production fees, any type of product fees on them.
I understand that. But they do generate income from interest.
Yes,
and
very little.
because of that, they should be bid. That's always been the process of moving bank accounts. Is that not right, Mr. Mayor? Am I wrong in that statement?
No, we've never bid when we're looking at accounts like checking account and those type of items. We've always looked and see where we're going to get the best service on there. So we've never looked at it.
And interest. I know better than that. I know interest is very important
Oh, absolutely.
to the city, and that
Absolutely.
does bear weight.
No.
Well, and I can go through these and figure out if you want me to, but not all of these are interest bearing because a lot of these are accounts that they can't legally pay us interest on.
Okay.
So they don't have interest on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a reason to move them?
Yes, we had a lot of reasons to move them. And we didn't move all of them. We are not switching banks. We moved some of our operating accounts to Equity. We kept some of our accounts at CS Bank. We split it a little bit half and half so that we would have a little bit more diversity. And because Equity has a Treasury Services Department, which is a lot more robust, and it helps us on our day-to functions of paying the bills for the city and doing the things that we need to do.
Cornerstone or CS Bank doesn't have that?
No, they do not. We had several. Arvest does. Yeah, Arvest does.
But they weren't given an opportunity for this. I mean, that's what I don't understand is that with the banks, that's something that, when those services are out there, whenever you move, it has to be beneficial to the city.
Yes.
But it has to be on a level playing field for all of them.
Right.
And that's the big part of the bid process, is that.
Well, that is a big part of the bid process on our CDs.
There's more than that.
Well, yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, but there's a lot more to this whole process than what you're looking at too.
Okay.
All right, moving on. On page 42, this is our long-term debt that we are obligated for. We made our interest payment that was due in, or we'll make we made it in April. So we'll update that in April. Our solar lease project, we make our normal payments on it. Our CD funding, we did have some CDs that matured in March. So the general fund CD matured in March. The renewal interest rate was 4.38 at 4.45 AP. The general fund CD, that was $270,000. It matured. It has an interest rate of 4.22 up to 4.30. Then the street fund CD, it matured, and the water meter deposit CD matured. So they both went to 4.26 with an APY of 4.33. Is there any questions?
So these CDs go up for bid when they mature.
When we have a CD that's coming up for bid, we send out a request to Arvest, to 1886, to CS Bank, to Equity Bank. I think that's it.
Okay.
We send them out to 4 banks, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's four of the local banks.
Just out of curiosity, you were saying that equity provides some additional benefit, and you said something about the treasury tools, or what? Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm just curious.
Sure. So when you have online banking, okay, like you have your own personal online banking that you can go in and you have a few things that you can do. Whenever you have a bank that has a treasury platform, that treasury platform gives us the ability to almost be like we're a teller in the bank. It makes it easier for us to move money around. It makes it easier for us to send ACHs and EFTs. It gives us, it's easier for us to upload those files. It gives us a lot more functionality, and it gives us a lot more ease to get our job done easier and better. CS Bank, their business online is exactly the same as the personal online. It has no more functions. Some of it is like, for example, if I upload a ACH file to CS Bank, they have to go in and look at that file. Then they call us. They have to get a hold of somebody. They have to verify the balance of that file. Then we okay it. Then they send the file. When you have a treasury platform, you can do all that electronically without having to do the basics. Another one of the main reasons why we transferred is because Equity Bank offers us positive pay. Positive pay is a huge thing for us now at the city, because what positive pay does is when I run a check run, I run an AP check run, I upload a file to the bank. Then when the checks come in, they bounce those checks against that file, and they make sure that they check the payee, they check the signatures, they check the amount, and it has to match the file that I sent. If they don't match the file I send, then it kicks the check out. It notifies us and says, hey, we get an email every day that says, hey, your positive pay file, you had these couple of checks kick out. Did you really mean to pay these? Then we can go in and look at them and say, yes, those are legitimate checks, or no, they're not legitimate checks, and they'll return them. What we had this past year, it was in our legislative audit, what we had this past year is we had a check that we sent out to pay a vendor. That check was intercepted. They did what's called washing, where they take all the information off the check except for our signatures. They make it out to themselves for the amount. Sometimes they leave the amount, sometimes they change the amount, whatever. And they made it out to themselves, and then they went and cashed it, okay? How we caught it was the vendor, because the bank didn't catch it. The bank pushed it on through, paid it, and didn't catch it. So how we found it was the vendor contacted us and said, hey, we didn't get your check, and, we always get your check on time. We didn't get your check. So we were like, well, yeah, we sent it. We go to looking, then we have to go get a copy of the check. We see that it's made out to somebody other than them. So then we had to file an affidavit, had to go through that process. The bank had to put the money back in our account. Then they had to go after the person who had washed the check. We got dinged on our legislative audit for having that happen. So whenever we first started when I first started as a finance director and was meeting with CS Bank about what they had, I kept bugging them about positive pay. Do you have positive pay? We kept being told no, that they did not have positive pay. So when we were approached by Equity Bank, we started out with Equity Bank first. They offered an FSA account to our employees. So we started out with them small just to kind of see how it would go. We did that. Then they were able to get us our credit cards. We changed our credit card portfolio over from somewhere that was way off to a local bank. So our department head credit cards are underwritten by Equity Bank now. So we did that. And they kept wanting more and more business. And so we started asking them, the very first question I asked Elizabeth Kelly was, do you have positive pay? And she said yes. So that kind of started the ball rolling on what other things can you give us that are better than we're getting now that will protect us? And so they were able to offer that. Now, in a recent conversation that I had with somebody from CS Bank, they say that they have positive pay. We have met with them several times, talked to them several times, had several meetings. When they changed their online platform, we used to get our history of our statements off the online platform. One day we came in, they changed their online platform, and all of our statements were gone. So we contacted them, said, hey, we need our statements. What can you've got to get them back on there. No, we're not putting them back on there. We'll send you a CD with those statements on there. Then we went through months of having problems going back and forth getting those statements from them. So it's not just been one day we woke up and decided we wanted to move. There were issues that we were having that we felt like that we could get better service on certain areas with Equity Bank. And like I said, at the time, we had all of our operating accounts at Equity Bank. That's never a good business practice to have all of your accounts in one bank. So what we did is we sat down and we went through some of our accounts and said, okay, we'll split these up. That way we'll have about the same on deposit with each bank, and we'll go forward like that, and that way we'll have two banks within the community that we're dealing with. And so we started the process. We started the process back in April. We talked to the bank. It's been said that we did this behind everybody's back. We didn't. We were public about it. We were public with both banks about what we were doing and why we were doing it. So this was clearly an economic decision. And this was my decision. This is what I wanted to do. I talked to the mayor about it, and we made the decision that this would be best going forward for the city. So
I appreciate you sharing all of that information. And it sounds like you have access to some tools that make your life easier
Yes.
and make the city run more efficiently. So thanks
And
for
safer.
the explanation.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Michael? If not, Michael, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks,
This
everybody.
will end our budget workshop, and we'll reconvene in about 10 minutes for our normal city council meeting. Thank you all.